as we head into this race weekend here at Azerbaijan, we have finally got ourselves some more news with regards to the incident involving the Ford team principal Ewan Wright and his arrest after brawling in his own annual Ford team party. Now, police have confirmed via CCTV that Reese and Ewan made no contact during the party whatsoever. This does now mean that Ford have suspended Ewan Wright until investigations finish. Now, speculation arose that Reese made homophobic comments towards Ewan Wright, which caused him to kick off after the consumption of alcohol. This is what Sergio Perez said to us a couple of weeks ago. This has now turned out to be false, as CCTV has confirmed that there is no evidence to show Reese and Ewan making any contact at the party whatsoever. So how Ewan could make an outburst after hearing comments from Reese being confronted is completely false. So therefore, with that being said and done, Ford have now suspended Ewan Wright as investigations go any further. Now, Lewis Hamilton is refusing to comment on anything that happened with regards to the party. He says that he has no focus on speaking about it publicly and will do anything internally to help in the investigations. The attention though now turns to Sergio Perez, as it's confirmed that his statement with regards to Reese making homophobic comments was a complete lie. Why did he make those comments? Why has he decided to try and call out Reese on this? There's questions to be answered, and Tom has already been the first person to call out on this. Of course, we saw that Tom and Perez had a very heated discussion a few weeks ago in the paddock, which nearly ended up in a fight. But now, of course, things have escalated further, as Tom demands to find out more as to what Sergio Perez is up to and why he's trying to frame members of his own family. Things are getting very, very serious now in this investigation, and it's only going to start unraveling even more as the weeks go on. As we have a look then at the race news heading into this weekend, it is McLaren and Jaguar that lead the way in practice, with McLaren taking the dominant forces. Jaguar led the way in FP1, but it's been McLaren in FP2 and FP3 with new upgrades coming in from McLaren. And speaking of them, they are expecting a P1. They're going for the win here in Azerbaijan with the new upgrades they put onto their car. They think that they can go ahead and do that. Porsche have gone ahead and made some big steps, as their new chassis that was expected to arrive for the last race weekend didn't actually turn up. It has showed up here though this weekend, and it's bringing them a lot more performance, with Pascal Wehrlein especially happy with the car. Now, Mercedes are expecting their worst weekend yet this season, as they're showcasing really poor pace. Most of that coming from the long straights, as they do not have good straight line speed in the Mercedes-Benz and struggling to find a balance in terms of compromising their downforce to commit with more straight line speed. And Vettel is happy with the setup of his car as he looks set to take part in this race with Aston Martin. Of course, Aston Martin yet to score in F1. They got very close last time out in Russia, so can they get any closer or even score points at this race here in Azerbaijan? But without further ado, let's find out. It's time for qualifying and the race. Yo, what's going on, guys? It is Foxydude here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the F1 journey for you guys today here on the channel. We are here for Season 6, part number 7, I want to say. I could be wrong on that one, but, you know, I'm just going to take that as a yes. But as you can see them, we're here for qualifying for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Before we get to today's video, if you end up enjoying today's video, drop it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're around here as well. And I am going to be recording some different F1 videos over the course of this weekend. Obviously, I haven't really recorded much F1 2020 in general. I'm going to start to try and get back into the swing of remaking or just making F1 2020 videos. So if there's anything that you really want to see, let me know in the comment section down below, and I might just end up picking one of them. Yeah, let me know. But as you can see then, we're going to go for a full run here of the Azerbaijan street circuit with our car on this qualifying lap here. So we're about 0.2 of a second up then on our personal best lap times. We found a lot of time through turns 1 and 2. Now going in towards the end of this long straight towards turn 3, getting very close to the wall there. Beautiful apex through and towards there. Just break now in towards turn 4 here. We actually lose about 1/10 and a half or so of overall performance there, but we are now purple through the first sector, so a brilliant first sector overall, as we now regain a little bit of time back to about 0.2 of a second now on our previous best laps. We now go through in towards the castle section, initially losing out horribly on entry, but then on exit, that's where we really found the time. And then through this castle section, just look at the delta shooting up there, up to 0.6 of a second now, nearly 0.7 now as we go on to the end of this long straight here, finding plenty of time now compared to our first flying lap here. Now as we go towards this difficult corner here Very tough to get the corner right. We probably could have taken a little bit more curb there on the entry, but it may have unsettled the car if we took too much. Now braking on towards the second to last corner, just missing the apex ever so slightly. That cost us a tiny bit of time now. So as we go onto the straight here, we're about 6.5 tenths up now as we go through and towards this left-right chicane. Really just flat out corners, and now you just keep your foot planted to the floor all the way to the start-finish line. If you've got a good power unit, you're going to have a lot of fun down this straight. If you don't have a good power unit, you're going to cry in the shed. As we now go towards the start-finish line here, it's going to put us into the 131s, but where did that put us? Alright then, so we're here for the F1 Journey Season 6, round number 8, so I was wrong in the first place. It is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and we are very much looking forward to this Grand Prix circuit. Slightly partly cloudy day today with 20 degrees in terms of the air temperature. Track temperature always much, much warmer than that. It's a 3.73 mile circuit with about 3.729 miles of that being one straight, e.g. the motorway straight. I'm only joking. But there is plenty of room for overtaking, as that is never something you should be fearing when you come to Baku Street Circuit. Soft, medium and the hard compound tyres, 6 tenths of a second slower is the medium compound tyres compared to the softs, and the hard 1.3 seconds a lap slower than the soft compound tyres. But the hards, very much a crucial tyre that will need to be used in the race. Shout out to the safety car. First time we saw that in the Russian Grand Prix last weekend, and maybe it'll come out again. You never know. But as you can see then, we can see a McLaren there on pole position and one of the Jaguars on the front row. But who was that? It was Daniel Ricciardo that took pole position for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix with ourselves on that lap, getting us onto the front row. Sam qualified in P3 ahead of Sergio Perez in P4 for the Audi car. Sainz was P5 ahead of George Russell then in P6 for the first Audi, or the second Audi car, should I say, of this session. Reese quite far down actually in 7th, and Charles Leclerc will be gutted to be down in P8 after his teammate got onto the pole position. Pascal Wehrlein with the second area of Porsche upgrades coming into play in P9 ahead of Hamilton and Rosberg in 11th and 10th and 11th. Not good for them. Verstappen 12th for Red Bull. Hulkenberg up to 13th with Vettel putting in a storming lap to qualify in 14th for a very poor Aston Martin car. Bottas and Ocon round off their entire row with 15th and 16th. Mason Wood, an awful qualifying session in P17 with Gasly down in 18th place. Lando Norris couldn't match what Vettel did, and he qualifies 19th ahead of Noah James, who lines up last on the grid for Ford in P20. But for us though, we are in a very nice position. As you can see, we've got the medium and the hard compound tyres being offered to us, and I decided to keep my strategy open and see what I wanted to do. And as you can see then, we're onto the grid now here for the start of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. We've got 5 red lights here, and it's lights out. Here we go here to start the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and it's a beautiful start from us off the front row of the grid, immediately jumping Daniel Ricciardo into turn 1 and even claiming the racing line there through towards the first corner as we now make our way in towards turn 2. It's a beautiful getaway though as we now charge our way down the straight here. Daniel Ricciardo down into second place. Sam might have actually just lost out to Sergio Perez in all of that as well. Ricciardo following closely into the slipstream here. Sam actually remains in P3 then in the start of this race as we now try and defend from Daniel Ricciardo early on as he had a great run towards turn 3. You can always get a lot of overtaking done in towards turn 3, but for us though, an absolutely perfect start, and we have now pretty much nullified that curse. Whenever we start on pole position, most of the time the guy in P2 always gets in front of us, mostly Reese. But on this occasion, when we get P2 on the grid, we jump into first place then, and we're underway in this Grand Prix. Already started to build ourselves a little bit of an advantage now as we go through in towards the castle section here, and just gingerly making our way through, learning the car on the high fuel, because of course the cars, like I've said before, are so different when you're in qualifying runs compared to when they're on high fuel. It feels like a completely different machine, and it feels like I've modded the car completely differently when I haven't. But as we now go towards the end of the second sector, Daniel Ricciardo getting a little bit of time back now here. And now as we go on to the end of the first lap here, we'll have to use some ERS and some rich mixture here, because that McLaren is going to be right onto the back of us here. McLaren, of course, yet to win in this season, and that's a bit of a shock actually for them as we now go onto the back straight here. Daniel Ricciardo getting very, very close into the slipstream now, but will he go for an overtake here? Sam seems to have lost some time here. Speaking of Sam, let's go have a look at what he's up to in all of this now. So as we go to the straight here, Sam now going in towards first corner. Ricciardo has a little look on the inside for us, but now Sam's under pressure from Perez in the Audi as they go now in towards turn 2 here. Sam has the inside line, so he should be alright going in towards this corner, but now Perez there, just able to swoop around the outside there, and actually claims the position now off of Sam. For us though, we're having to defend here because Ricciardo now is going to come back at us on the outside of turn 3. He goes for it now around the outside into turn 3, but we are able to be a bit more feisty and aggressive with the car, and we can defend the position there quite nicely. On board now with Sam here, who did initially lose out to Sergio Perez and all of that earlier on, as we saw at the end of the first lap. He's now going back at Perez here. DRS has now been enabled for Sam, and he breezes past the Audi car with no DRS to his defense. There we are in the lead, ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, now building a gap actually between myself and the McLaren driver. Speaking of that McLaren driver of Daniel Ricciardo, it's not Daniel Ricciardo anymore because Sam is now a man on the mission. He's flying in this field now. He's up into second now. It's a 1-2 for Jaguar. It's very close there into turn 1, but Sam gets the move done, and he's in front of Ricciardo now in this Grand Prix. So Sam, after starting in P3, dropped to P4, back up into P2 now. So it's a 1-2 for Jaguar. Question is, has he got the pace now to catch up to me? But let's go and have a look at the start of the Grand Prix and nullify ourselves back to where we were before. So when the lights went out here, it was a great start for us though. We got a beautiful start and straight through in towards turn 1. Sam covering Sergio Perez. Perez initially actually getting in front there, but Sam swoops around the outside of turn 1 and it's able to maintain position here for us. It's a very easy run now down in towards turn 3. On board with Charles Leclerc then in towards his start, and let's see what he was up to then. So as the lights go out here, he's actually pressurizing one of the Ferraris now in towards the first corner, but Charles had a great start here, lunges it down the inside of George Russell, but annoyingly, it was actually 3 wide going into turn 1, so he had to back out of it, which really wasn't helpful for him. And unfortunately for him, he loses more time because he's actually lost out to, I believe that's Pascal Wehrlein in the Porsche car there, so that's not helped him out. Now with the Renault car of Esteban Ocon, so let's see what Ocon was up to in this Grand Prix then. So as he gets off to the start here, you can see in front of him, Vettel starts on the mediums. What a dive bomb from Esteban Ocon. Holy moly. He just took no prisoners there. Bottas then trying to get back in front now of Ocon as they go in towards turn 2 here. Very, very gingerly and cautious through there, but it doesn't work out for him. But my God, did he go for a dive bomb into the first corner. Lap 5 of the Grand Prix now, and the gap between myself and Sam is getting bigger now. So we are beginning to pull away ever so slightly. We've got a yellow flag though, and it's someone behind. Is that Sam? No, it's not. It's Ricciardo then. So Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren is out of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. That's a disaster for the pole sitter, as McLaren brought some upgrades heading into this weekend. And it's a big disappointment there to see Daniel Ricciardo pulling over to the side of the circuit. It's an engine failure for Daniel Ricciardo, which has cost him dear on a track where he so desperately would have wanted to score some big points in the championship, really. But it's not going to work out for him. Now we're on board here with Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, who's now attacking Sergio Perez in the Audi, and this is going to be a quite simple overtake here with the help of DRS to come to his aid here. Carlos Sainz absolutely breezes past, and he's up into 3rd place now in this Grand Prix. So it is just myself and Sam. You can see me actually there leading up the front. Lap 7 of the Grand Prix now. We're coming in for our first stop of the Grand Prix, and Sam there is actually getting quite close to me behind, and we're actually sticking to our one stop that we were doing beforehand. Of course, we had to put on lap 7 for the hard compound tyres anyway, so we're now coming into the pits here, and we're going to strap those on and take ourselves to the... Why am I going on to the medium compound tyres? I swear to God, I picked the hard compound... Did I pick the mediums in this race? I can't remember what I even picked. I swear I went for the hard compound tyres. I changed the strategy to have a look at the medium compound tyres, but I don't remember going, okay, well, never mind. I guess I selected the medium compound tyres. I have no idea. But we're back out now on track, and we're on medium compound tyres. So that's pretty much committing us to a 2-stop strategy in this Grand Prix, which seems a bit silly. But now, as we've gone to the end of lap 8 here now, we're catching up to the back of the traffic that we've got. We've got Noah James here in the Ford, which we need to get past very quickly in order to not lose out too much time in this race. We've then got the Aston Martins of Norris and Vettel, and then the second Ford car of Pierre Gasly, who's actually getting an overtake done in the process here. So we're going to go and overtake Noah James. In fact, we don't have to overtake Noah because he's into the pits. That doesn't really matter for our race, as we have a little scroll through now and see what everything is going on here. As Gasly now does indeed get in front of Vettel and also Lando Norris, I think, in all of that, as we're now trying to see if we can find a way past any of the Aston Martins, because that would be great for us in terms of our race. We need to get past the traffic as quick as we possibly can because we've now pretty much put ourselves in a bad situation with this 2-stop that we now pretty much have to commit ourselves to in this race. But as you can see here, though, as the two Aston Martins scrap away, we are going to go down the inside of Lando Norris, and we do make an overtake stick there. So nice easy move there on Lando. Next up the road is Vettel, but crucially, Sam has actually rejoined behind us. So we have now stayed in front of Sam and built a little bit of an advantage compared to ourselves and him now as we go on to lap 9 of the Grand Prix here. Vettel is now right in front of us, and we've got a very easy run here on the German as we now go through in towards the beautiful left-right flat-out set of corners. Now we're going to go to the inside line here, barge our way on through past Sebastian Vettel. We're even going to get a run here on Pierre Gasly as well, just for good measure, opening up the DRS now on the back straight here. Gasly, though, actually pulls off into the pits, so there was no point in actually going for a move on Gasly there. It made absolutely no sense to do that, but we still got in front of him anyway, and that is us now up into second place. Up the road, I believe, is one of the Porsche cars who is yet to stop in this Grand Prix, so he's clearly on the medium compound tires. They're doing something a little bit different here. But we're now going to go on board here with George Russell, who stopped, and he's on the soft compound tire. So George Russell is 100% committing to a 2-stop strategy, whereas I probably have to stop again, but I have got the medium compound tires on, so I'm doing something different. In fact, everyone's doing something different in this Grand Prix, because I believe Sam is on the hard compound tires, so well, he should be anyway. Lap 11 of the Grand Prix now, and George Russell is flying in this Grand Prix on those soft compound tires. He is absolutely flying now in this race, and as you can see here, he's actually catching up to the back of us here now as we go through in towards the long pit straight of death. As you can see, George Russell now opens up the DRS very, very shortly. Actually, it's not even open yet, but he's going to absolutely breeze past us, and there he goes. George Russell now is in effective P1 in this Grand Prix. We'll tuck it to the slipstream of George as we go now in towards the first corner here. Russell, though, doesn't go towards the outside of turn 1, and we're going to come back at George Russell now. A beautiful late braking maneuver there around the outside of the first corner, and then in towards turn 2, we can commit ourselves back in front of George Russell, and despite the fact that he has got the soft compound tyres on, despite the fact that he's a hell of a lot faster than me, it didn't cost me any time doing that overtake because I just broke really late into the first corner, so I'm okay with that. Now we're going to go another little bit further on. Russell now is desperate to get past us here. We are compromising his race really badly now as we start to hold him up as we just running our own Grand Prix race at the moment. If Russell got past us, you know, he could be a couple of seconds up the road, which could really pave the way for his race to turn out into something pretty good. For us, though, I'm just letting George Russell, you know, stay behind me for as long as possible as we now go onto the pit straight here. Once again, George Russell is going to go on the attack now. He goes to the inside line, same as he did last lap. Now he's going to go pit straight past us. DRS is now open for George Russell. It's now a drag race here. It's not a lot less competitive than it was the first time around, but Russell this time around, crucially, does defend the outside line much better than he did before, and it doesn't allow me to get that switch on. Russell now is in effective P1 in this Grand Prix. Sam just behind the two of us who are scrapping away, but we now have got DRS on this back straight here, and if I've got the slipstream, which I do, I'm going to go straight back past George Russell again, and that's exactly what we do then with a DRS here into turn 3. Again, doesn't compromise me. I'm not losing time by fighting George Russell because we're just DRSing each other, so from my perspective, I'm cool with doing this DRS stuff on George because it means nothing for me. As we now go on to lap 13 of this Grand Prix here, let's see what George Russell does now as we go through the chicane once again. Now George Russell is into the slipstream here. We're going to do the same thing as per usual. He's now going to go to the inside line, which will have him the inside for turn 1. But George Russell is actually going to come in on this lap. There he goes. He's now off our tail, and he's going to go on to a set of the medium compound tyres and go to the end of the Grand Prix. But now is where it gets a little bit tricky for me because I need to find out what I'm actually going to do in this race because I thought I was on the hard compound tyres and I'm on the mediums, and now we're in a bit of spot of bother here. Someone else is in a spot of bother. It's Carlos Sainz because he's about to get attacked by Lewis Hamilton here. We're going to have a little bit of a recap now of how the rest of the field is going on because my race at the moment is quite quiet here as Leclerc is just in front of these two scrapping away. Hamilton with that DRS. Mercedes do not have good straight line speed, but Lewis Hamilton is going to pay to that with a lovely move there on Carlos Sainz, and he's now through and past the Ferrari driver and can set after Charles Leclerc. Another man that's on the move is going to be Mr. George Russell, I want to say, in his Audi car, who, remember, just stopped for a set of medium compound tyres. Now he's trying to make his way back up the field again because he actually rejoined in a bit of traffic. So crucially, those laps that he was spent stuck behind me and not able to pull away, he's probably lost about 5 seconds potentially, maybe even more than that, just because of maybe how much pace he could have extracted. And I wasn't exactly super duper quick when I was on my tyres because I was trying to look after them a little bit. But Russell there gets a little bit flustered actually on his attack on Verstappen. That's put Perez right on his tail here. But now as they go in towards turn 3, Russell does stay in front of Verstappen, but it doesn't help that he got held up a little bit here. Carlos Sainz, meanwhile, was not happy that he got overtaken by Lewis Hamilton earlier on, and he's going to come back at Hamilton once again. So with the DRS here, the Ferrari is much quicker than a Mercedes-Benz in a straight line. So there goes Carlos Sainz. He is through, and he is now back up into a position that I actually don't know of, although I could just check his steering wheel. I think I said P6. I could be wrong, though, as we see the two Audi cars getting close for comfort. Verstappen, though, is getting close for comfort with more drivers than one, as he's now trying to defend here against one of the Renault cars. I believe this is Ocon that he's trying to defend against now as they breeze down the straight here. If this is Ocon, this is not going to go down well, because they don't have a great history with each other when it comes to racing. As they go around the outside then into the first corner, still can't see the number of the banana car. It's Bottas, so it's fine. Verstappen can't crash into him, and Bottas vice versa can't do the same. But Bottas goes around the outside there of Verstappen. Lovely overtake eventually, but Verstappen will get the reverse DRS here on the straight now, tuck into that slipstream, and he should be alright to get a run at him. But Verstappen doesn't seem to have the straight line speed in that car to make any form of moves. As we've got another Ferrari car now trying to make amends here, and it is now I believe this is Reese here going around the outside of Daniel. No, it's not. It's Sainz going around the outside of Leclerc here, and he does so in quite easy fashion there. So Leclerc, who did drive for Ferrari before moving to McLaren, gets overtaken by Ferrari. Nico Rosberg just up the road now. So I wonder if these three cars can catch up to Rosberg and put him under some pressure, whether Nico has got him covered. But Leclerc now stuck quite nicely with the Ferrari here. Of course, Leclerc, the sole remaining McLaren in this Formula 1 race. Now he's going to go for that overtake on Leclerc, close to the wall then on the left-hand side of the circuit, but he's through now and back past Carlos Sainz in this Grand Prix. Slipstream and DRS train is a massive factor here at Azerbaijan, and he's through back up now ahead of Charles Leclerc. Hamilton watching on in behind as these drivers trying to get close to Nico Rosberg now. Crucially though, Sainz is going to have that DRS to come back at Leclerc now, so he might just get a run here. The Ferrari is very quick in a straight line. He's going to go for it. Leclerc goes defensive in towards turn 3. Super close now between the three of them, and eventually they just about hold station there as Hamilton gets right up onto the back of them now. But Hamilton can't stay onto the back of them for too long, because the man who's on the medium compound tyres, George Russell, is now starting to fight his way back up. He breezes past Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes-Benz car, and the second Audi car of Sergio Perez is also getting close into the act here as Sainz now goes around the outside of Charles Leclerc there. So Sainz and Leclerc having a beautiful scrap here, and they're just allowing Nico Rosberg to just pull away into the distance. Now we've got a big fight here. It is Leclerc versus Sainz versus Leclerc versus Russell versus Hamilton versus Perez. In fact, Perez is about to go for it on Lewis Hamilton. In fact, he's already got the job done there. So Hamilton really not having a great time in this Grand Prix, as Leclerc now has got DRS on Sainz. Now as you can see that Russell has got DRS on them as well. This is going to be very close now in towards turn 1. They're going to have to make sure they don't make any contact. It's Perez actually that's going for the run here on Charles Leclerc. I've got it completely wrong today. I seem to not be very good at naming which driver is which at the moment. Very difficult for me. I do apologise, but it is Sergio Perez that didn't get the move done. Now Russell will try and come back at him, but he doesn't do it on that occasion. These guys are having a beautiful scrap right now in this Azerbaijan Grand Prix as they breeze on through now in this race here. Leclerc is now trying to chase back after Carlos Sainz again. Leclerc is much closer on this occasion, and he should get the job done here with that DRS. It's going to be crucial to see if any of the Audi cars can get through on the act here and try and have some fun now as they go in towards the first corner now. Leclerc is through. Perez, though, just about has to sit back and wait a little bit longer for his opportunity to get at Sainz. So it's not going to be easy now, because the reverse DRS will be in, obviously, Perez's favour. It'll also be in Sainz's favour as well now. So Sainz can get that run on Leclerc and try and come back at him. In fact, he's not going to go for it, because Sergio Perez will actually try and go for it now. He'll have that slipstream as well coming in from Leclerc. This might just work for Perez here. Around the outside, medium compact tyres, very close to contact there. Perez is through then, so he's ahead of Sainz. Now Russell fancies to go at Carlos Sainz. The Ferrari going backwards now in this Grand Prix here. Russell, let's see if he can try and make it sick. He'll have to brake late to go around the outside here, to claim that inside line on Sainz. This is great wheel-to-wheel racing now between these two drivers as they go through in towards the castle section here now, trying to make their way through in towards the chicane here, and I believe Russell is going to come out ahead just about. It's going to be so close here. They can't really go side by side through in towards the castle section. Russell takes the position. Now to lap 15, or going backwards to lap 15, because those scraps that we saw now were quite in the past there. We're now looking at ourselves here, and I'm pretty much considering now, what on earth do I do in this Grand Prix? I've shot myself in the foot, really, by going on... I've been shot in the foot, really, by going onto the medium compound tyres. And I don't really know what to do in this stage of the Grand Prix here, as we've got a yellow flag there out on circuit, so somebody's had an issue in all of this now as we're trying to make our way through. It is Sebastian Vettel actually in the Aston Martin that has to pull over to the left-hand side of the circuit, right-hand side of the circuit actually, and he is out of the Grand Prix. So we're now going to go back onto ourselves here. We're going to go into the race director here now. Now, don't worry about all of the driver names and team names. You can't change those in F1 2020, so that's why I hide the UI in the first place. But looking here, those drivers that have done a two-stop race are all the way down in P8, P11, and P12. So I'm pretty much going to rejoin in that gaggle of cars because of the closeness between myself and George Russell. So Sam, as you can see there, very, very close. I've decided now, skipping all the way to lap 26 of the Grand Prix here, I'm now going to just brave it out here and just go for it on these medium compound tyres to the end of the Grand Prix. I've shot myself in the foot, really, by not being able to go onto the hard compound tyres. Now we've got one more lap to go in this Grand Prix, and this was kind of, I thought I was alright in terms of performance here, but now we're struggling here. Sam on the hard compound tyres comes at us now towards turn 3. This is going now down to the wire here into turn 3. We hold off against Sam on that occasion, but there is still one more straight to go later on in the lap here now as we breeze on through on this lap here as we now go through in towards this chicane. We're going to watch this entire lap now in full here. I decided to take the risk and stay out on these medium compound tyres. That gap was still hovering around 2 seconds, but in the last few laps, Sam has really closed that gap right down between myself and him, clearly realizing that I'm not stopping again. I'm trying to go to the end on the medium compound tyres, and in fairness, if I just stayed out a little bit longer on my soft compound tyres, we would have been able to have had more pace on these mediums, but annoyingly, I just didn't really get the strategy right on this occasion as we now go through in towards this final section of corners out very hard on the curb there, really unsettling the car. That puts Sam right into the back of us now in towards this last proper corner on the circuit. Again, a bit too much curb there. We've not got much rich mixture to use. We've got plenty of overtake though to try and use on this lap now as we go through in towards the last portions of the circuit here. Now on a split screen side by side here. This is going to be so close towards the start finish line now. We're using every ounce of the DRS that we've got at our disposal. Sam's got DRS though that's going to come up very shortly. Sam now goes towards the line. It's a photo finish, but Sam crosses the line and he's won the Azerbaijan Grand Prix by the slenderest of margins, and you can see it on your screens right now. Sam has won the Grand Prix by 3/100ths of a second from ourselves, and I can tell you what, I was absolutely kicking myself after that Grand Prix that Sam managed to win that Grand Prix, but he's won it by 3/100ths of a second, and the championship leader takes the victory after leading the race for, well, 3/100ths of a second, basically. Reese finishes in P3 for Ferrari, 5.3 seconds back from the two Jags. Nico Rosberg is 4th for Mercedes, 11.2 seconds behind. Charles Leclerc finishes in 5th for McLaren, 13.8 seconds back. He manages to beat the two Audi cars of Perez and Russell, followed by Pascal Wehrlein in the Porsche car, who made a stunning comeback somewhere in all of that. So he claimed P8. He's overtaken Sainz and Hamilton in all of that. So fair play to Pascal Wehrlein in the Porsche car. Beats Sainz, and he's got in front of Lewis Hamilton. George Russell set the fastest lap of the race with a 1 minute 35.467. Now as we go over into the second half of the table, Hulkenberg just missed out on the points in P11 for Porsche. Verstappen in P12, bad weekend for Red Bull. Bottas and Ocon 13th and 14th, ahead of Lando Norris in P15. Mason Wood only gains one position in 16th place. Gasly finishes in 17th, ahead of his teammate Noah James. Sebastian Vettel DNF from the Grand Prix, and so too did Daniel Ricciardo. Now we're going to have a look at the Drivers' Championship and see how that has affected things. So, in the Drivers' Championship, Sam now has a 14-point lead at the top of the championship. He's on 130 points with ourselves on 116 points. Reese is going to be the next man to get over the 100-point mark should he score in the next Grand Prix. He's on 99 points now, with George Russell in P4 on 72 points. Daniel Ricciardo is then 5th after not scoring today. He's on 68 points. The two Mercedes cars are Rosberg and Hamilton swap positions. Rosberg on 60 points, Hamilton on 55. Leclerc is on 52 points ahead of Carlos Sainz, who is on 50 points, and then Sergio Perez is on 46 points. Then as we go into the Constructors' Championship now, Jaguar are on 246 points and do lead the way ahead of Ferrari, who are now on 150 points. Those 1-2 finishes in a row have really put Jaguar in the box seat heading into this weekend, with McLaren on 120 points. Audi are just 2 points behind them on 118 points, and Mercedes are just 3 points behind Audi on 115 points. Red Bull are on 42 points now, as Renault are on 20 points, and Porsche extend their set of points up to 6 now in this race. But with that being said and done, let's go and have a look at the post-race notebook and see all of the outcasts from what was a crazy Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So as we have a look at the post-race notebook now after this crazy Azerbaijan Grand Prix, we've got all the fallout from what happened at that race and what happened with Jaguar. So first of all, obviously the main headline, Sam snatched a photo finish win off of Tom, winning the race by just 3/100ths of a second as Jaguar claimed their third straight 1-2 finish and seemed to be on a streak which doesn't look like it's going to be beaten anytime soon. But now we need to have a look at what happened between the two drivers and the teams itself and find out why things just went completely wrong. So Tom has confirmed that he had selected the hard compound tyres and had claimed that Jaguar had screwed him over by boxing him onto the medium compound tyres at his first stop. Now Jaguar have confirmed that both cars had been set to go soft hard and both had selected that for the start of their race. But with other drivers moving to a 2-stop strategy, Jaguar confirmed to have moved Tom to a 2-stop to cover those other cars off. Now, the biggest issue comes then with what Sam has had to say. Sam has confirmed that he had absolutely no idea that Tom was 2-stopping and that when he found out that he boxed for mediums, he initially thought he's going to be 2-stopping. But then he had no idea on that occasion that Tom had then ignored a call to box for a set of soft tyres to go to the end, and Tom had carried on going on to his medium compound tyres, meaning that Sam never pushed until the end of the race, where he just managed to beat Tom to the start-finish line. It's a crazy race and a crazy fallout, and we might get more of what happened in this race next time out. Until then, though, it is going to be the Dutch Grand Prix next weekend. Hopefully you guys can join us then, as this has been a crazy race, and we can't wait to see what's in store next weekend. But for now, guys, I'm out. Take care all.